So my name's Dan Boyle. I work for the Smithsonian Institution in Washington, D.C. I've been there since 1998, starting out as a contractor and then as a federal employee in 2005. And I'm going to talk to you a little bit about our collection space systems today. So the things I want to talk to you about, just a little bit about Smithsonian and just chatting with some people. I get the sense that people don't really know a lot about us. What is our FM technology that we use? What was our requirement for collection space? What did that initial implementation look like? Then I got into a Clint Eastwood frame of mind, and I've got the good and the bad and the ugly about that initial implementation. Where we went from there with an enterprise implementation, and then more Clint Eastwood, some takeaways for you, a fistful of dollars, and then what are we doing next? A few dollars more. Okay? So this is just a summary of the session, and this is what we call the castle. Am I okay? This is what we call the castle. It's the original building for Smithsonian on the National Mall, and it looks like a castle. So our mission at Smithsonian is the increase in diffusion of knowledge, and we started in 1826 with a gift from a guy named James Smithson. He was an English guy. Wanted to make his name in the world, realized he could probably do that better in the U.S. than he could in England, so he gave the United States government some money to found an institution. And it took the United States government, I think, 20 years to figure out what to do with that. And finally they established the Smithsonian Institution, and we continue to operate using that trust. So we're quasi-federal. I'm a federal employee. We have trust fund. You'll see some of our museums have names. Those are things that come in through the trust fund, and we're also federally funded. So what are we? This is kind of an iconic, the elephant in the entrance to our Natural History Museum, founded in 1846. We have about 30 million visitors every year. We have 20 world-class museums. We're the largest museum complex in the world. And it also includes the National Zoo, so we have living collections. We have 9 research centers. People don't usually know that we do a lot of research. Observatories, conservation, tropical research. We have 5 buildings that are National Historic Landmarks. We have 137 million artifacts. These are our collections. This is all of our stuff, and it's all of your stuff, right? It's the national treasures of the United States. We're open 364 days a year. We're closed on Christmas. We have about 6,000 employees and probably an equal or greater number of volunteers. If anybody has any questions, it's fine to just throw them at me. So our space profile, we have close to 600 buildings. We have in our database about 24,000 spaces, about 13 million square feet. We have museums, we have offices, we have storage space, we have laboratories, telescopes, like I said, live collections. Pretty much anything you can think of, we probably have it. So our technology at Smithsonian. We have an enterprise facility management system, IBM Tririga. It started out, when I started out at Smithsonian, as a product called Span FM, and it morphed through the years, and it finally landed up at IBM, and it's IBM Tririga. We've been using that since 1998. We were customers of the client server product, and we followed it the whole way through. Our financials and HR is PeopleSoft. Our corporate database is Oracle, although we do have some Microsoft SQL Server databases. Our GIS is Esri. So we have an integration to our IBM Tririga system with Esri, but also in our research community there is a lot of work that happens with Esri. I'm not part of that, but there's a lot of research work at Smithsonian. Reporting, we use Crystal Reports. And then new for us in the last year, we have a new business intelligence solution. It's Tableau. I don't know if anybody has started using that, but it's a pretty cool tool. And then mobile, we're using also the IBM Tririga mobile app, and we've built our own inspections app for iPhones. So like I said, I've been there for a long time, since 1998, and I'm part of the IT organization. I think I'm kind of in the minority at these conferences. Most people here are out of the facilities organization. I hear a lot about how to get around the IT organization when I come to these things, so I try to keep a low profile. But at Smithsonian, we have a very collaborative relationship between the IT department and the facilities department. This is just an overview of what we do with IBM Tririga. We're a long-term customer. We have 9,000 users. It's the system of record for all locations at Smithsonian. We use it for our annual federal reporting. We do lease management. Our users do self-service. We've built out an event support system in there. We do work management, assets, inspections, that typical stuff. Facility condition assessment, that's all in IBM Tririga. I think we now have 5 years worth of condition assessment data in there, so we do some reporting year over year. All our PMs are in there. We do projects with IBM Tririga, but only on the front end where we define the requirement for a project, and then that gets into a queue and gets prioritized. We have a pretty extensive implementation there. We are probably one of maybe 2 users of the lock and key module in IBM Tririga. We do a thing called meter, which is nothing to do with meters. It's a safety inspection. We do hazardous chemicals. We have an integration to MSDS to get our safety data sheets. We track hazardous chemicals, particularly important at the zoo for us. We track what we call embedded hazards, which are things inherent to the space like asbestos or lead. And we also do reservations. And we do 2 kinds of reservations. We do your more typical room reservations, conference rooms and that type of thing. And we also do something our project manager calls beds and boats. So we have the reservation system at Panama. We have visiting scientists there, and they need to reserve a research facility, a bed, and a boat, usually, to do their research. So beds and boats down there. So you can see we are pretty broad in our use of that product. And we probably are one of the most, we have probably one of the broadest implementations of anybody of IBM Tririga. We have some
numbers on dollars spent.
I don't have it off the top of my head, but sometimes we get it seems like a big number when you add it up, but I mean it's spread out over a number of years. But it's we have a group that supports it. We have annual maintenance, and we're changing. The one thing about the product is they deliver a tool set for you. And so, for example, there's no hazardous chemical piece in IBM Tririga, but they deliver a tool set, so we built it ourselves. So we don't have to go buy another system. We build it in there, and then it's already integrated to our location data, so we don't have to worry about integrating 2 systems together, and that type of thing. So we try to always look internally first. Is there a system that we can use rather than go buy another system? Some of our integrations, we integrate IBM Tririga and PeopleSoft for financials and HR. We integrate to our timekeeping system, WebTA. We integrate to Esri ArcGIS. We integrate to a product called Envision, which you probably have seen here today. So there's an integration. In Envision at Smithsonian, you see real-time Tririga data in the info windows in Envision. Another thing for us, which is maybe not everybody does, is our GIS started out inside the building. It's floor plans and wayfinding and information about inside the building. And we also, for reservations, there's an integration of Microsoft Outlook. So that's just a background on our technology that we have there. So I want to I'm really here to talk about collections. And collections, like I said, is all our stuff, and it's really important to us. Our collections are irreplaceable. So when a lot of times I come to these types of conferences, they talk about space management, and it's all about people and butts in seats and that type of utilization. That's not really our issue. Our issue is what kind of condition is our space and how well are we using it and where does it need to get improved. So in 2005, there was a report called Concern at the Core, and it studied our collections for the very first time as a comprehensive look at our collections. We traditionally have been sort of stovepiped. All the museums are kind of autonomous and they function independently. So, since that time, since 2005, they started to look at things holistically at Smithsonian. And so one of the most important things that report focused on was our space. So it took a few years, but in 2010, they started looking at the collections across the institution and not just as each individual museum. And when I'm going to talk about collections, We're not going to be talking about that I have in my database that I have a painting from 1842 and what it is, and we're just concerned about the space. What's the space like that painting is stored in, and is it appropriate, and does it need improvement? So they formed this collection space steering committee. So the mission of this steering committee was they wanted to safeguard the collections, make sure they were stored efficiently and cost effectively, make those collections available to our staff, and develop a strategic, holistic method to meeting our current and future needs. So this was, at this time, our first ever survey of our collection space was undertaken. So they looked at 1,800 locations, 90 buildings, 2 million square feet of space. They surveyed those, and they looked at those in these 5 categories. They developed a survey, things that they felt were important to know about that space as it related to collections. So these 5 categories were construction, environment, fire safety, security, and storage equipment. So construction might be things like, is there a leak in the wall, or is there a problem with the physical integrity of that space, the envelope of that space? Environment is things like, a lot of our collections are sensitive in their temperature and humidity, right? So what were the requirements of the collection stored in that space versus the physical space, right? So if we had some meteorites stored in the space, maybe we don't care if it's, gets wet, or if it has certain humidity requirement, but if we had some paintings or some photographs, we certainly do. And we also find that sometimes we have maybe both of those types of things stored in the same space. So while it's appropriate for one thing, it's not for the other. Fire safety, we just wanted to know, was there fire protection? Was there detection? Was there separation? What was it? Security, how high risk is that collection stored in that space? Is it appropriately protected? And then the storage equipment is all the refrigerators, cabinets, all the things where we store those collections. What kind of shape are they in? Are they the right kind of equipment for the things that are being stored there? So, like I said, they undertook this effort to survey 2 million square feet of space and understand their collections. So what they found was that 47% of the space was unacceptable, right? So more than half the space was acceptable, and of the space that was unacceptable, the average was within 7% of being acceptable. So if we applied some resources to the right places, we could make some real impacts. So we undertook projects to improve our space. So I'm getting to the bad news here soon. So this is kind of a timeline. You see, we realized there's a problem. We put together a group to study it. So then we go and do this survey, and we say we have all this data. What are we going to do with it? So although I said we collaborate a lot, in this case, they did not collaborate with the IT department. They went, and the guy out in the facilities group, he said, I want to do this. So he built a Microsoft Access database to store all this information. So you'll see kind of the bad news here is the initial results said in 2012, they published it. And then we have 3 years of surveys and nothing, they're not going anywhere, right? They were not published, right? Because they made a bad decision, in my opinion, on where they decided to put that data. So like I said, this is the castle, an old photograph of the castle. They had their subject matter experts in fire safety and construction and security survey all these spaces. Then they had the business unit develop an access database and produce these reports. And so those reports ended up getting published and going to Congress. It's very high profile. And it's all sitting on a Microsoft Access database. So at the time we knew about it in IT, we weren't really comfortable with that, but that's, wasn't our place to intervene. So this is a good and the bad and the ugly of taking that approach. So their approach to modeling it in Microsoft Access, it was good that it facilitated understanding their requirements and really modeling what they needed things to look like, modeling what reports they needed. They were able to produce that first year of reports, and like I said, it got published into a book and went to Congress and made an impact for us. The bad was, this is a single user solution, and all the data had to go through one person for updating. All the changes had to go through this one developer for entry and update. Users of the people out in our units, that the curators, those people, they only had access to that information through these printed reports. They had no real-time access. There was no user interface in Microsoft Access without building it to do your data maintenance. So they settled into this annual data call process that's slow, inefficient, really old school, and it was all going to flow through one person to update their Microsoft Access database. And they had a fixed set of reports. They're really not reports that are providing analysis. They're just a regurgitation of a database since the users don't have access to the database. And it was a single year. There was no, a new year was a new database. So there's no real ability to do year-over-year analysis. And there's no audit trail. If you want to say, why did we change that from acceptable to unacceptable, somebody had to go dig through emails or something to find out what happened. So the really ugly part of this is their solution, as I said, goes through this single resource, this developer. That developer left the Smithsonian, right? So now what? So they have a new guy, right? So a new developer. So he takes it and he says, I can make a lot of improvements to this, and he runs with it. And he re-engineers the whole thing kind of on his own. We're still not able to produce reports. We're still not able to get that data in there. So there's a lot of conflict over there, but it's kind of external to me. I just know that they're not working with us. So he re-engineers all this, and then guess what? He leaves the Smithsonian, right? So now we've made the same mistake twice. So they call me, I'm in the IT department, they call me and say, Paul's leaving, we need your help. Just come over, we need to get these reports printed out. If you could just come up, we don't have access, if you could just help us print these reports, that'd be great. So that was March of 2015. So I went over there, and we still, we battled with that for probably 6 months, 7 months, trying to get their FY15 data loaded into there, because he had re-engineered the whole thing. Everything was different than they were expecting. It was a complete disaster, and finally the leadership said, we're punting. We don't, let's just, we know we need to get rid of this, let's just punt, and we're going to go to an enterprise solution. So how did we move that forward? We had to mature that database into an enterprise system. And since they had experienced this 3 years of not being able to get the reports produced, there wasn't a lot of resistance. They were very eager to move into an enterprise system. So we like to utilize our existing tools, IBM Tririga, Oracle, Esri. SI Explorer for us is our internal name for Envision. Crystal Reports, Tableau. We want to look at our internal tools before we go look to buy something else. My job in the last year has become very complicated managing security vulnerabilities and so on servers. So every time we buy a new server, it just increases that workload. So if we can consolidate systems, then I only have to do that work one time instead of 2 times. So we wanted to build a multi-user system on a robust database managed by staff that we were not dependent on. If I leave Smithsonian, this system can continue to function because it's built on a enterprise solution. We wanted to provide role-based security so we could adopt multi-user system and crowdsourcing rather than everything running through that central person, push the responsibility for that data out to the units and have them update their own data. And we wanted to leverage our existing data and our process. Like I said, we have 24,000 space records in our Tririga database. We don't want to create another database with, a duplicate set of space records, because day one we load those, day two they start changing, right? So we spent a lot of time before we gave in to punting, we spent a lot of time trying to reconcile those two together, and our space is changing constantly like yours is. So if you can get that into the same system where you already have dedicated staff managing those locations, then you don't have that problem. And so we also can then share this data with other processes. Like I said, we have a process in IBM Tririga for identifying facility requirements that then get prioritized and become projects. So if we have our collection space data in there, that can feed that process, inform that process, and go directly to projects, and then we can close that feedback loop and see how those projects improve our space. And we want to distribute the ownership of the data and share information with as many people as possible. Data-driven decision making. So we undertook this, implementing this collection space system in our IBM Tririga. These are some of the things we wanted to do. It's going to be visually represented on floor plans and maps. Stakeholders have access to view and update their data. Data maintenance is multi-threaded. Data processes are shared. Multiple input methods, desktop, tablet, phone, data import. Multiple output methods, reports, queries, dashboards, and all the data is available all the time. Some more attributes of the enterprise system. It's existing location data that I talked about. We're just going to augment that location data with some additional attributes about collections. We're going to have an audit trail to keep track of changes, who did what and when. We have cases where multiple collections are stored in the same space, so we want to be able to share that space. So we've built that. Our collections have specific requirements, like I talked about. Maybe it's humidity requirements, temperature requirements, those types of things. We want to be able to capture those things. We want to be able to have this be scalable year over year and be able to take a snapshot each year so we can do analysis. We have scores that are automatically calculated based on a user input. So the user input might be there's a leak, and that might automatically generate a score of 3. Right? So then these scores get used to quantitatively determine whether it's acceptable or unacceptable. Our role-based security allows users to see and update their data, and our portals allow the streamlined access to that data and to the processes. We'll have some integration. SI Explorer and Vision will be able to expose our collection data on that. They'll be able to do additional analysis using Esri because it's integrated to our Tririga database. And we have many collections. I think there's 20 plus collections systems that keep track of the actual collections. They're very specific to the type of thing, but whether it's artwork or rocks or whatever. So we have all these collection systems. So by having a good solid database, we will be able to be positioned to integrate to those if such time that they want to. So reporting, we have annual reports that we'll produce with Crystal. This will run directly against the real-time data. We'll have ad hoc reporting through the Tririga application. We can see changing conditions throughout the year. We're very much stuck in this annual data call process, but if we can push the users to keep their data updated as it changes, then they can see conditions as they're occurring. And we're going to use Tableau to do some metrics and analysis. And also, Tableau allows us to do integration without doing integration. So in Tableau, I could connect multiple different databases. I don't have to integrate them as long as there's something that I can share between those two, and I can integrate just at the endpoint in my visual analytics. I don't have to actually integrate the systems. So we have at least one system that we're planning to do that. So here's our benefits that of going to our enterprise model. It's a shared system. Data is available all the time to all users. Users have access to view and update their data. Their processors are shared. Integrations are possible. The database is professionally managed. We're not subject to somebody leaving Smithsonian and then we're down. Everything's based on COTS products, Tririga, Oracle, Tableau. The existing database objects are going to be extended to include the collection space functionality. We'll be able to do historical reporting, and things are going to be, our processes can now be multi-threaded and faster rather than single-threaded. So how do we get there? How do we do this? So at Smithsonian, we use a software development lifecycle. Anybody else use this term, SDLC? So it basically is our method of doing IT projects. And so it's basically, it just prevents us from making mistakes or prevents us from delivering bad products. So and the first step in this process is requirements collection. Anybody familiar with requirements collection? Right? Requirements collection, really, if you're ever in doubt of what to do, your requirements will always lead you to the right answer. It prevents you from getting off track. It prevents you from building a system that's around one person instead of what your real business need is. Everything we do gets derived from our requirements. We also like to use Agile. Is anybody familiar with the term Agile? So Agile, and we're not really strict in our use of it, but Agile basically means rather than collect your requirements and then disappear for 6 months, and then I come back and show it to you, and at that point it's different than what you remembered. Agile means what we do is we're going to break the project down into real small, we call them sprints. So we'll say, okay, we're going to do a sprint of what the portal's going to look like. So we'll go build that in a week or two, and then we'll come back and we'll show it to you. It'll be very dynamic, and you'll say, no, I like this, I don't like that. We'll change it. We'll come back in 2 weeks later, and we'll show you, okay, we fixed that. This is what that looks like. Now the next thing was, okay, the space form is going to look like this. And so we'll go through that, and we'll keep going through these sprints every 10 days. So you as the business user, you're engaged in this the whole way through the process. And when we get to the end, everybody's on the same page, and most of the problems have been fixed along the way, and you're getting a product that you expect to get, and I'm not having to rebuild it. So we like to do that. We are going to be able to try and go back and take 2 of those years and load those into our database so that we at least have 2 years of historical data. We're going to do three types of reporting, queries within Tririga, Crystal reports, and Tableau for analytics. And something new that I did on this project was do mock-ups. We used a product called Balsamic. I don't know if anybody's heard of that or used that, but I really liked it. I think I have a screen here that's next. So this is on the left was my mock-up I did with Balsamic, and then this is how it ended up looking when we built it out in the product. So Balsamic, it's a very low cost and it's very easy to use. And one of the things I liked about it is it doesn't look like a real software application. It looks like a sketch, because when we tried to mock things up in the system, our users would say, well, it's done. And would say, well, no, it's really not done. So everybody understands it's just a sketch. And when we collect the requirements, it's a long list. We had 170 requirements in a spreadsheet for this project. And it's a long list, and it doesn't really make an impact on you. But when you put it into a mock-up like that, it really takes the business user to a different place. They really start understanding what you're trying to do, and you make a lot of progress. Also, the developer. I had a problem on this project where I had a developer that was supposed to come onto my project, and we had another developer working on a different project, and that guy turned out to be a total disaster. And so he left, and we had to get my developer to fix everything, which meant my project started probably 3 months late. And so I was worried about my window of opportunity to get this project done. How can I accelerate this project so we make real fast progress when my developer becomes available? So that's when I started using Balsamic. So when he came on, there was not all these design sessions where he and I were going back and forth about how this, what was in my head and how to get it developed. I had everything already built out for him, and so that really provided a lot of good direction. What you have to keep your thumb on, though, is developers, they don't always go back and look at what you asked for. They'll just start going. So you have to keep coming back to your mock-up and saying, well, I already had that. If you go look at it, it's there. So if you do that, watch out for that. So this is just a sample of our requirements. Like I said, doing good requirements will always lead you to good decisions. So our requirements, I break them down into what type of requirements are they: security requirements, functional requirements, what phase are they going to be in, are they mandatory requirements, are they nice to have requirements, and then are they approved or not. And then we included definitions for every single field for our users. So another problem I had on this project was this collections group. It's a cross-institutional team, and they they talk a lot. So for me, 170 requirements, we could probably do that in 2 or 3 days, and we'd be done with it. And so I kind of built my schedule around, we'll just knock this out in a couple of days, and we'll go and we'll be done with it, and we'll be right back on track. Well, we started that in May, and they're still going. They're still working on requirements, and a couple of weeks go by, and they'll talk and talk and talk, and we really won't have any decisions on the requirements. So what I learned about that group was, as much talking as they did, they really didn't change the requirements at all. Even though they weren't coming to a conclusion, I could see that we weren't going to be that far off. So I took a risk, and I said, I'm just going to build it based on the requirements, and if it's wrong, I'll have to rebuild it. Which it's contradictory to what I told you. The requirements come first, but I'll lose my window if I don't do it that way. So they got really mad at me when I told them that. But they're as much as they talk, they're not changing anything. So it's a calculated risk. I'm taking a risk either way. If I wait for them, I risk the project getting kicked till next year. If I don't wait for them, I risk some rework. So either way, the requirements are going to tell us what success looks like. At the end of this, it's already built. They're not done talking about the requirements yet, but I'm already done building it. But I know when they eventually approve all the requirements, then when we test it, then there's no doubt into whether we built what they asked for or not, right? So we know what success looks like. And it keeps us focused on our project, because when you tend to get sucked up into what one person thinks or what they want, and you build it all around a person. I had another project like this. It was one guy's vision. We built it all around what he wanted. We finished it just as we were about to finish it. He changed jobs. He stayed with the Smithsonian, but he changed jobs. We finished it on his vision. The new person came in. They said, "I don't care about any of this." So good requirements, kind of alleviate some of that problem of building around a single person. So Agile, I talked about, keeps everyone engaged. So this is what our sprints look like for this project. I had 7 sprints, and so even though I built most of this ahead of time, we'll still go through all the sprints. We'll meet with them. We'll show it to them, and then we'll come back, show them the rework, show them the next piece. We've done a couple of reviews already with them, and so this is our American Indian Museum. If anybody's ever been there, it's very interesting architecture. So a fistful of dollars. Some of our takeaways: collaborate. We have, with the exception of this project, we have a really collaborative relationship between our IT department and our facilities department at Smithsonian. I think that it's very unique, but I think it was totally accidental. Our particular group was part of the facilities department 15 years ago, and we had a CIO come in and centralize everything, and he pulled it out, put it into the central IT group. But we kept supporting them in the same way, and we understood their business. So I think we're unique in that way, but it really, really works for us. Do your own job. When you're a hammer, everything looks like a nail. I try to, on the project team, let me do my job. Don't try to minimize my importance, and I won't try to minimize your importance. I don't understand collections, and you don't understand systems. So let everybody do their job. I said this a couple of times. Don't base your development on an individual staff member because they leave. Build scalable solutions. Our initial implementation of the collection space, it was not scalable. It worked one time. What we're building in our enterprise system, it's scalable. It's going to work every year. We're going to be able to have multiple years worth of data in there and do year-over-year analysis. For us, this is important. Maybe not for everybody, but use existing systems when possible. Just really cuts down on the overhead. Use prototypes and mock-ups to communicate and facilitate. Requirements are always going to lead you to the right decision. Keep stakeholders involved with agile methods. Have clear leadership and roles. I had and this project had a lot of issues, right? So I had a problem with leaderships and roles. So I did a presentation of my vision for this project to the senior leadership and who the stakeholders were and what everybody's role was. And so I had a slide deck like this, and I did that. And so then they asked for my slide deck, and I gave it to them. And then it got sent around the next week by somebody that was in the meeting, and she had replaced a project manager with her. She inserted herself as the project manager, and she demoted the guy that was the project manager. And so, so we've had a problem with that ever since on this project. We have a bit of a personality clash. So I should have, at the time, I should have raised that issue, but I didn't. I didn't want to make any waves. But it's been an ongoing problem on this project. So have clear leadership and roles. And make value judgments and adapt when there's hiccups in your plan. So I clearly had to make a value judgment on, I couldn't wait for them to continue discussing endlessly the requirements. And I made a value judgment, and I moved ahead without them. And they got really mad, but in the end, when I showed them for the first time what the system was looking like, then all was forgiven. They're like, oh, okay. So what are we doing next? And this is a model of our new museum, National Museum of American History and Culture. It's opening, I believe, in September. So we're already starting in Tri-Riga to do work tasks and things like that in that museum. It's on the mall. You can see it's right next to the Washington Monument, and it's on the west side of the American History Museum. So it looks, I have not been in there, but it looks to be like a really interesting building. So that's what's next for Smithsonian. What's next for our project? Start doing some analysis with Tableau, our business intelligence tool. Start doing some year-over-year analysis to see if we're applying our resources in the right places. Integrate to the project request and prioritization process. We are informing that process. If we want to, next step, integrate to automatically create those records. Once again, to make sure we're applying our resources in the right places. We want to have a mobile application for this so that our units can collect it on their phones and tablets. We can do it now on a tablet, but you're basically just going to the browser and using it there. Tri-Riga has a new concept they call a perceptive app. So it's an application you build with their tools, and it looks different if you're on the desktop versus a tablet versus a phone. It knows your platform, and it's perceptive to that, and it functions appropriately. So we have an upgrade in this fall, and then after that upgrade, we'll be able to start building some perceptive apps and mobile applications. And then we have, it's just come along, Education Space has come to us and said they have a very similar requirement. We're very big into education, and they have, I think, 140 spaces that they've identified so far, and they want to assess them to see how appropriate they are and if they have the right audiovisual equipment, the right construction, all those same types of things that we're doing for collections. They have similar requirements for education. And the difference is this time they talk to us up front. And so we can start working with that vendor when they're surveying the space, so we can move that data in right away when it's available into the system. So really that's all. That's our whole project, and if there's any questions, I'll be happy to answer them, or I've got some screens. I don't know how well they come across, but I can keep going with that too. Yeah.
So your mobile data collection is an IBM product that as people walk through the spaces and collect all of these attributes about the spaces, it's populating.
So we have
Tri-Riga?
IBM Tri-Riga, right, and they have a mobile platform that we have implemented for just work orders, right? So we could take IBM Tri-Riga on a tablet, and we could use the same application on that tablet and walk around and update using the tablet. It's the same. You're just going to the browser on the tablet instead of the desktop. Mm-hmm. The thing we don't like about that is you're dependent on being connected to Wi-Fi all the time, right? We want to be able to have a disconnected app so that if my connection drops, I can continue to work offline, and then when I regain my connection, then my data gets synced up. So that's where we want to go with our mobile. And we also want to build a version that would go all the way down onto the iPhone. So it's kind of there, kind of not.
My impression of the system is that it's highly configurable, and ideally you don't have to do a lot of customizations. Is that your goal? Were you trying to use it as much out of the box as you can, or did you get into some customizations?
Oh, sorry, I'm supposed to give you this. So she asked, she said that the system was, in her view, highly configurable, and did we want it that way, or were we trying to stay out of the box? So we struggle with this all the time. So when we started out with it, it was a very immature product. We were on the client-server version of this 15 years ago, and then we went to the web version. It was a really immature product. And they didn't move everything over from the client-server version to the web version at first. So we said, well, we can't do without that. We had to build some of it. So some of it was necessity that we needed that functionality that wasn't there yet. So if we were to implement it today, I think we would be closer to out of the box, but probably not that much, because we have a lot of things in there that they just don't do. Like hazardous chemicals, right? They don't have anything for that. But they give us the tools that we could build that out ourselves. So we build that on top of other things like spaces and inventory that's in the product, but we just make it specific to what we need to track. So we struggle this, and our users, they'll go back and forth and they'll say we need to get rid of all the customizations, and then the next week they're saying I need a customization to do this. This fall, the TriRiga application has two pieces, like probably other applications. There's the platform piece, which is the engine of it, and then there's the application, which is what you see. So the application, all these things that we've customized in the application, we're embarking on an application upgrade and a platform upgrade this fall. So what we'll do is we'll evaluate all our customizations against what they're delivering in the out-of-the-box product, and we'll say, what do we want to do? Do we want to punt our customization and move everything over to this, or do we want to keep our customization, or do we want to try to blend it, in a customization but different than we have now? So we'll go through the whole product that way.
But you chose to stay with TriRiga based on what you've seen and your experience with their company today. Is that fair?
Yeah, I mean we're a good customer for them, and they've been supportive of us. And if we were to change, there's every couple of years somebody says, let's evaluate if this is the right product for us. So I mean it's probably a good thing to do, but I also know it would be tremendously expensive to change. Whatever product we pick, we'd have to customize it, and we would end up with a custom product with some issues that are different than the issues we have now, right? And we would spend a lot of money to end up in pretty much the same place we're at. So I hope that every time that we do that evaluation, that we stay, it validates where we are. But if we were to implement it today, I think we would probably still choose this product. So, any other questions? I'll just show you some screens then. So this is the portal. So this is what we have two types of users for our collection space. We have data compilers and unit coordinators. So a data compiler, a unit coordinator would come in and to be able to see all the space within their unit. So we have security in there so that if I'm a member of the Hirshhorn Museum, I can only see spaces that belong to the Hirshhorn Museum. And if I'm a member of natural history, I can only see natural history. But I might be somebody that's an administrator, or I'm part of the National Collections Program, so I'm a member of all those groups. I can see all the spaces. So the unit coordinator, they log in, they see all their spaces. These are all their old reports. We rebuilt them using Crystal, and they can launch them right out of there. There's some other stuff that I couldn't fit on the screen capture that's graphics, floor plans. They could pull up any floor plan and thematically map it to show where their spaces are, what the condition is, whatever. We also envision adding a Tableau dashboard on there. Our National Collections Manager, what he wants to see in his portal is, are people getting their collection surveys done? Right? He's interested in to know what the condition of the space is, but he also knows if he has to produce this report at the end of September, and it's the 1st of September and nobody started, he's got a problem and he needs to start calling people. So the way it works now, he has no visibility into that. But with our new system and our new concept, the units are responsible for that. They'll create their own assessments and they'll assign them and when they're due. And so he'll just be able to see each department, are they making any progress or not. So the data compilers, they would log in and they'd see things like the unit person can go out there
assigned to them,
and
they've
the
got to
fire
go there,
protection and those
and they'll
other
open up,
specialists,
another form
they can
somewhere in here.
see the can go out there and go out there and go out there.
They'll
and
open up a form.
The
So
fire
these are all
protection
my
and those other
assessments, and then over here you
specialists,
can't see it all,
they
but
can
these
see
are
the
all the
results of it,
categories. So I can
and
just click there
they'll
and
have their
quickly
own
go
view
through
into it in the
them.
database, and they can go say if they disagree or not.
We have
So
three-
there's an
three
example
levels
that we
here.
had
So we
that
show
was
you
really
calculated
good.
score
So
based on
somebody
grade.
from the unit
You
said
get a color. There's three colors.
the
There's
condition
green,
of the environment
red, green,
was
and blue, red, green, and yellow.
unacceptable and
because
go out there,
people already
and
have
the fire
bias of
protection
what
and those
means.
other
So we have,
specialists,
purple,
they can see the
blue,
results
and
of it.
right?
And you can
So-
go out
so you
there,
get-
and
based on the score, you
the
get
fire
the
protection and
color,
those
you
other
also get the words
specialists,
acceptable,
they can see the
unacceptable.
results of it, and
So what
they'll
we
have
do
their
when we
own
create a
view
new
into it in the
assessment for a
database,
space,
and they can go say if they
We're
disagree
going
or
to
not.
pre-populate it with the current
So there's an
conditions,
example that we
you don't
had
have to go out and
that was
go
really good.
figure
So
out what type of
somebody
fire
from the
protection
unit
it is
said
every year.
the
It's going to
the
pre-populate
condition
it with
of
what
the
it was
environment
last year.
was
You
unacceptable
just need to
because the HVAC
identify
systems needed
what's
to be
different than
replaced,
last year.
right? Because there was
So
temperature and humidity requirements
The
not being
data
met at the
compiler,
storage facility.
they'll
And so
complete their
The
assessment.
maintenance guy says,
And they'll submit
there's
it.
nothing wrong with
And
the
they'll submit it back
systems,
to the unit
they're putting a
coordinator.
concrete block in front of the door and propping the door
The
open.
unit coordinator will
So
review it,
that's
say it's
why
good,
they're not
and
meeting
they'll
their
publish
temperature and
it, and
humidity
that it
requirements.
becomes a
So
new current
by
condition,
giving
or
this
they'll
level
say,
of visibility
"I don't
into
agree
the
with this,"
data, I think
and they can return it
we
to
can
you.
capture more of that and
So
get it into,
you could
get
see,
those notes in there, get that
None of this
information
would-
in there.
None of this would be off the shelf
and
software.
instead of
This is
carving
pretty
out months of
specific
everybody's
to
time
us.
to walk around.
So
Most of our maintenance is
That's why I say I
in-house
think we
maintenance.
would
We have a
probably
few
still end up
contracted
here.
facilities, but mostly it's
Are you
in-house.
doing that in-house?
yes,
You are.
yes.
You can go out there, and the
Sorry.
fire protection and those other
question was,
specialists,
the
they can
question
see
was,
the
are we-
results of it.
are we
and,
doing-
you
are
know,
we doing this
They'll have
work
their own
in-house
view
or
into it in the database,
So we have.
and they can go say if they
they'll-
disagree
They'll
or
go
not.
out with a team of people.
So
to
there's an
assess space.
example
That's
that
how they
we
do it
had,
now. They
that
will
was
have,
real.
a fire protection person, a
Go
security
out there,
person,
and
maintenance
the fire
person,
protection and those
somebody
other
from the, collecting
specialists, they can see the
somebody
results
from
of
the
it,
space
and,
management group.
you know, they'll
So
have
they'll
their own view
kinda
into it in the
like, if you
database,
imagine you're
and they
looking
can
at
go
the
say if they
data,
disagree or not.
They'll do that.
So
to
there's
your
an
space,
example that we
and all
had
the experts will kind of
that was
weigh in
really
on what they
good.
feel
So
it is.
somebody from
So
the
we're
unit
thinking,
said
I'd like to see that change.
the
right?
condition
I don't
of
think
the
they all
environment
need to do that.
was
I think
unacceptable
that the-
because the HVAC systems needed to be
The
replaced.
collection, the unit
Right,
person.
because there
can
was
go out
temperature and
there,
humidity
and
requirements
the-
not being
the
met
fire
at the storage
protection and those
facility.
other,
And so
specialists, they
the
can
maintenance
see
guy
the
says,
results of it.
there's nothing wrong with the
They'll have
systems,
their own
they're
view
putting a
into the
concrete block in
database,
front of the
and they
door
can
and
go
propping
say
the
if they
door
disagree
open.
or not.
So that's why
So
they're
there's
not
an
meeting their
example that
temperature and
we had,
humidity requirements. So
that was really
by,
good.
by
So
giving this
somebody
level
from
of
the unit
visibility
said
into the data, I think
the
we
condition
can
of
capture
the
more of that
environment was
and
unacceptable
get it into, get
because
it,
the
those
HVAC
notes in there,
systems
get
needed
that
to be
information in
replaced.
there.
Because there was temperature and
and
humidity
instead of
requirements not being met.
Carving out months of everybody's time to walk
And
around.
so the maintenance guy says.
Most of
"There's
our
nothing
maintenance
wrong with the
is
systems. They're
in-house
putting a
maintenance.
concrete
We have a
block
few
in front of the
contracted
door and
facilities,
propping
but
the door
mostly
open.
it's
So
in-house.
that's why they're not meeting their temperature and humidity requirements. So by giving this level of visibility into the data, I think we can capture more of that.
Yes.
And get it, those notes in there, get that information in there. Instead of,
We were,
carving out
so on
lots of
Friday
different-
morning, I'm doing another presentation about our GIS.
most of our maintenance is.
So I was envisioning at the beginning of this that we would expose that information on our GIS, and you could thematically map and see where your unacceptable space was, and all those sorts of things. But as we got into the project,
Yes.
they said, well, we don't want anybody to see that, it's okay to see the aggregate information at the building level, but nobody
We were-
outside of that
so on
department should be
Friday-
able to see
Friday
that
morning,
data.
I'm doing another
So,
presentation about our GIS
yeah.
integration.
I don't know that
So
I,
I was
it's not my
envisioning at the beginning
decision,
of this that
but, so,
we would
while we
expose
could do
that
it, I don't know
information
that that's
on
gonna
our-
happen.
on our GIS, and you could see, you could thematically map and see where your unacceptable space was and
Sure.
those sorts of things. But as we got into the project, they said, well, we don't want anybody to see
Anybody
that.
else?
It's okay to see the aggregate information at the building level, but nobody outside of that department should be able to see that.
That's
data.
me, feel free to
So-
contact me anytime.
You know, I don't know that it's not my decision. So while we could do it, I don't know that that's gonna happen. Sure. Anybody else? Any other questions? All right. Oops. That's me. Feel free to contact me anytime.